Welcome to Cult and Classic.
Welcome, friends and fiends, to this episode of Cult and Classic Films podcast, where we talk about a classic film as well as a cult film and compare them both, except when we don't. And this is one where we don't, as we are approaching the romantic season this year, or whatever year you're listening to this. It is always time for romance. We're going to talk about romantic movie recommendations. We talk a lot about beheadings and bizarreness and celebrity bad behavior on film sets in this podcast. So today we're going to keep it lovely. And with me, I have Greg Johnson. How you doing, Greg?
Doing fine. Finally doing.
Finally doing. That's right. It's wonderful to have you back. And also, we have with us Jeffrey Tucker. Also wonderful to have you back. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing great. Doing real great.
Yay.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back.
Well, oh, okay. Let's just rephrase that because you can come back anytime you want. That is not on our end. Jeff also made an amazing.
Hook, line, and sinker. You're easy to bait, Nate.
It is true. It is true. So we were given pictures before recording this of this homemade tortilla taco meal that Jeff prepared, and it was pretty much just to torment us because none of us are in the same state right now.
Yeah.
It was that. It was like,
you were texting me while I was cooking, so you know.
He's like, I'm gonna come on the pod, but I'm gonna make you wish that you were somewhere else and somebody else and doing.
They were
something.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
homemade tortillas.
I feel like I can smell them, which is concerning me because it makes me think something's burning in the house. But we'll see. We'll see if the podcast ends abruptly. Yeah, right. I'm having just toast. Okay, so romantic movies. This is one where I had trouble finding movies that I think everyone would consider romantic in my repertoire, but there are a few. So I have a couple. I'll just share one right off the bat. It's hands down. I've talked about it before on this podcast, so it's a little bit of a cheat. But Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist is from 2008 with, of course, my beloved Michael Cera and equally beloved Kat Dennings. Okay, no one's equally beloved to Michael Cera to me, but close. And it is truly just a delightful romance that takes place over an evening in New York among some younger people, kind of in their 20s, hipsters. And it is just lovely, and it has great music, and it's kind of about music. And you have a little bit of gay representation in there. You have some bad indie music, which we hold very dear here at Cult and Classic Films. And it also has someone who I love, which is the drag queen, Love Connie, has a bit in there. Said everybody was great, and I had no doubt. I had no doubt. It's romantic. It's funny. I recommend you watch it once the sun has gone down because it all takes place at night, essentially. And it just ups that feeling of romance. So get a bottle of Coke Zero. You'll see the movie references that, as well as whatever beverage you want. If you're a wine drinker, a wine drinker, then go ahead and get that. It is a lovely, lovely movie. It warms my heart. It's one that it's just weird enough to have come on my radar, and it is a happy movie. It also has some lines about indie music that should be listened to by everyone. Are you listening, Jack White? Because it applies to you. Alrighty, so let us go on to Greg. Greg, what would you recommend our listeners watch with their beloved for a wonderful romantic evening, daytime, morning, lost in time and space, anywhere?
Well, I had two. I had one that was if you're really feeling the spirit of love, and the other if you're, I don't know, you're your own Valentine. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
The more coupley one, and also trying to keep him with the cult and classic theme. The classic is Princess Bride.
Yes.
It's just kind of an everything movie. It's like, oh, like, should we watch it for Christmas? Yes. Should we watch it for Valentine's Day? Yes. Should we watch it for Easter? Sure. It's just it fits all moods, and I feel like It's genuinely, it's so fun, it's adventurous, it's sweet. It's yeah, I've never been able to think of any other film that I feel like actually checks every single box. It's got a little bit of horror in it, it's got some action, it's got kind of everything, and I don't know how it did that.
Yeah. I agree. Any day that ends with Y is a good day for Princess Bride.
Yeah. And I mean, listeners will know we did talk about that as well. When I first saw it, and I apologize, but I did think it was overrated. And it's because it's one of those things like when somebody's like, "Oh, you have to watch Goonies." Although Goonies I do not think is on the level of Princess Bride. If you didn't see it when it when it hit you the way that it hit people when it came out, I just don't think it has the same impact. And that's how I felt about Princess Bride, mostly because the framing story, I was just like, I don't understand. It just from a narrative perspective, I did not really love it. Watching it again and now again and again and again, I've changed my tune. It really is, and that was actually another on my list of romantics
Yeah,
because
I was about to fight you on that. I actually kind of like the who's it? It's Fred something and
Oh, Fred Savage,
yeah,
Fred Savage and I can't remember the
Columbo, whatever the actor's
yeah,
name.
Columbo,
Yes,
yeah.
I forget his
I
name
thought
as
they
well.
had a cute little I thought they had a cute little interplay.
They do.
Yeah,
And I mean,
It does break. It is kind of weird. Like I almost
yeah.
wish there was just like a different movie and it just had like that relationship play out. But it is they have a cute little interplay there.
I do love that. You have these two stories. You have the fantastical Wesley and Buttercup narrative,
Mhm.
which is the bulk, but then you have this grandson who kind of thinks his grandfather sucks.
Yeah.
And the grandfather's kind of like, my grandson's a little bit of a twit. But like by the end, you get this sense of oh, like he just formed a lifetime bond with his grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
and that hits harder, like, once you actually start spending time with kids as like an older person, you start to like you start to see the emotional elements to that relationship like far more.
Yeah.
And it definitely you know that the framing story is definitely for the adults for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and probably only for the adults.
well,
And Nate, to your point earlier, yeah, I always like the story about very very similar vein, sort of the movie It's a Wonderful Life, famously box office flop, and most people didn't like it because
mhm.
it felt too nice. It felt like no one is this kind. Things don't
Mhm.
happen this way, etc. And I feel like Princess Bride has a little bit of that, a little bit of like you bite into it and you're like this is too sweet. Like this is like
Yeah.
and if you're not in the time, you're not in the mood, you're not in the place, it feels over the top.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think it's funny you mentioned that because I do feel and I love It's a Wonderful Life also, but they both of those movies I think are good examples as opposed to Goonies, which I'm not knocking Goonies, okay? It's entertaining to me, but it doesn't have the same depth. I can watch It's a Wonderful Life and I swear every time I see something new and it has some amazing lines that add depth that just actually kind of shocked me that they put in. Like when I forget her name now, but Jimmy Stewart's girlfriend is on the phone and his mom's like, "What are you talking?" And she's like, "He's making violent love to me, mother." Like it's hilarious. And there's also anybody who is not used to watching the black and white version because they're famously a colorized version that's on a lot as well. That scene in the beginning, we see him growing up and like all the good things he does, and he sort of doesn't really. He's like the perfect cinnamon roll, right? But when the angry guy, the pharmacist, he thinks that the kid is messing up the order, he boxes him on the ears and he's bleeding from the ears in that opening scene, which happens. Boxing in the ears is actually pretty serious if it's done, well. But like that's something that we just would not. And then of course you find out that the pharmacist wasn't paying attention and he was giving deadly medication to this person, and Jimmy Stewart's character was fixing it. And so it's just it has these elements, and Princess Bride has that too. The more you watch it, the more every time I watch it, I come away quoting and thinking something about something new. Of course, you have the I forget his name for his last name, Gary, who does the inconceivable. Like that guy is brilliant, still alive, wonderful. Andre the Giant is great. And of course the king is also great, played the vampire in the original Fright Night. And you have the lines like uh well, everything that Carol Kane and Billy Crystal say, have fun storming the castle, like that is just a perennial favorite. As You Wish, of course, is lovely. I actually was thinking about it today when we were prepping this, and I'm completely naive, and maybe I just forgotten, but I didn't make the connection that the king was gay, or the to-be king was gay, because we know his
Oh,
henchman is gay.
Humperdinck,
Yes, because we know his henchman who killed uh,
the
uh,
six-fingered
Inigo
man.
Montoya. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
know he's gay because he plays it very. I mean, we assume he makes it. He's flamboyant. He's very dapper. It's just a lot of the stereotype marks are hit. Although I think he's also a character that has some non-stereotypical elements too. But then I'm like, oh wait, it really does line up. And I don't know if that was intentional or not. I mean, William Golden has done, fans out there who've read the book, the Once and Future King that this was based off of. Go ahead and write us in. I think it's T.S. White. Is that who did it? Anyway, no, Princess Bride. Beautiful. Let's go to Jeff. Jeff, what's a romantic flick that you would recommend people enjoy?
So when I went into this, I was actually kind of thinking modern films. I don't know why. Definitely based on the name of the podcast, it shouldn't have been. But that's kind of where I was thinking. But it's hard to find, I think, the modern rom-com because like most of the ones that are kind of like maybe big budget or like studio ones are pretty cringe.
Yeah. Is it going to bother you if I seductively eat a banana while we're talking about this romantic?
Go right ahead. I think there are still some gems. So I started a list, but we'll just start from the. You can just we'll get through whatever I get through. So I got The Big Sick. I think it's kind of it's kind of like a little bit of an off rom-com type thing. It's more of like a messy relationship type thing. There's like a Sandra Bullock like While You Were Sleeping. It has some beats matched with that. But it's Kumail Nanjiani. It's actually based on his actual life, his actual relationship with his wife. But it's definitely a good watch if you haven't seen it. It's extremely funny and a very heartfelt film that I strongly suggest. I don't know. Have you guys seen that one?
I have not.
I haven't either, but it looks quite interesting. I mean, it's written by Michael Showalter, who wrote the 2001 Wet Hot American Summer version with.
Well, it's actually written by Emily Gordon and Kumail, the husband and wife.
Sorry, it's directed by Michael Showalter. Excuse me.
That's correct. Yeah.
And Michael Showalter knows his way around some awkward romantic love stories, having done Wet Hot American Summer with.
It has a really powerful performance from Ray Romano, of all people. And Holly Hunter.
Oh, Holly Hunter is lovely, and Ray Romano, I actually think is undervalued as a.
Like a dramatic actor. Yeah, I think that was that him in that film was like I was like whoa. Like he's actually like he's got some gravitas. He's not just like a schlock sitcom guy. He's actually he's funny and he brings out the emotions and connects I think really well in this one. So I don't know. I think it's a great film. And I think it's even more interesting that it's based on, a true story, like an actual love story between two people. So I checked that one out. The other one is also another strange one, Palm Springs.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, that's the Andy Samberg.
Yeah,
yes.
That one I think that's the other
movie.
one that is a kind of a modern kind of like romantic masterpiece. I don't think there's that many, and maybe I'm just wrong. because I think a lot of the good ones are probably independent films
Yeah,
now.
I don't think they get a lot of national of like big time theater distribution or that
so
kind of thing.
you gotta go hunting for your rom-coms, I think, nowadays. Because we don't, there's no more like Tom Hanks or Meryl Streep
or Meg Ryan. I think there's a big nostalgia factor, right? Like, especially because our whole generation is based on nostalgia.
Though. I think they were better than like the ones that are put out now by the studios.
For sure. I mean, I'm not trying to knock anything her specifically, and it's not her fault for anyways, but ever since basically Friends hit the scene and we got how come I not think of Jennifer
Aniston?
Thank you, Jennifer Aniston. That era, like her era of popularity, just kind of killed the quality rom-com. Like, I mean, you look at whether you like it or not. It became
like a pretty person with another pretty person, and
like
get them in a really cringy situation.
A Netflix.
That's kind of why I find the modern rom-com.
Yeah, just like a Netflix. You either had the dirty comedy, which also died, or you had the kind of just, I hate to say dribble. It's just so sappy that it's by the book. You always know. Like you had a couple in there that were cute enough to enjoy. I think what was it? Was it Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds? Like those are cute, right? Yeah. But they're never they're popcorn. You know, there's nothing really heavy in there. The Proposal, another Ryan Reynolds. All of his movies.
I think those are the ones that I'm like I consider like they're kind of just like cringy. They're like just pretty people in like cringy situations. For sure. I'm not saying they're not fun and like you should enjoy them if that's your type of thing. But it's just like I don't think there's anything that's.
It's not When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah. It's exactly. Yeah.
It's not City of Angels, right? I mean, those were kind of the last gasp at like the risk-taking rom-coms in mainstream. I agree. Palm Springs is like, it's also anything J.K. Simmons is in.
Oh yeah,
just watch it. He's watch wonderful. It. Yeah. It's fantastic. And of course, living here in Palm Springs, we watched it and the first time it came out. And it's interesting because it's one that has like quickly slid into the ether of memory because it was a writing off of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, with Andy Samberg. It was one of Hulu's first big like our release, like only here kind of thing. I think it had a limited theater release, but it was really for streaming. That's how they used it. It wasn't created that way, I don't think. But because of that, which now is so common, it really disappeared because streaming is so fast and you're also competing with all the theater release movies that move to streaming, that it's disappeared. So that's a great one. Give it a watch.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll give one more before you cut me off here.
It's coming.
It's it's another one. So Palm Springs is like heavy time travel, which is, one of my pet peeves in filmmaking. For some reason, I give it an extra pass when it's like a comedy or like more light when it's just like a story driven thing. Like I think
I'm more like say Hot Tub Time Machine too.
No, it's called About Time. This one probably you guys don't know of as well. This one's just like a little honorable mention. It's
with Rachel McAdams,
Donald Gleason, and Rachel McAdams. Yeah, Bill Nighy.
I remember this. I didn't see it.
Yeah. I love this film. I think it's like kind of like one of those. I don't know, just hit the sweet spot for me. It's a little bit more thoughtful than romantic, and it's I don't know. I think it's a good watch, and I think it's just romantic enough to hit the Valentine's suggestion list.
And he, I mean, Richard Curtis, who wrote and directed it, is kind of the modern romance guru, right? I mean, he did why am I blanking? The
Love Actually.
He did Love Actually, and he did the Bridget Jones. That's it. The Bridget Jones movies.
Notting Hill.
Notting Hill, which I also love. He knows his way around those because he knows, and I mean, Love Actually, of course, is kind of like everybody knows Love Actually, and it's kind of it's the pulp. I always think of it as the Pulp Fiction of romantic comedies because of its narrative structure broken down into stories and time changes and all that jazz. It is also sappy sweet, but you also have those moments where people don't get together. They break, they break up. I mean, Alan Rickman and
Yeah, I think it was like really powerful this time. Yeah, the Alan Rickman and
Emma,
Emma Thompson.
Thank you.
Their relationship is like bittersweet.
Yeah.
For sure. It's not a nice lovey thing. And then there's other things where it's just like Bill Nighy and his manager. I don't know the name of the actor.
Adorable. Yeah, he's very recognizable in British cinema and British TV.
So it's like yeah, I mean like that also I think that particular movie kind of was like preceding like Netflix, where like that style of narrative was rare. It was
especially
like, I think
like
Crash
the films
got
that could be family,
an Oscar just for doing it.
Right?
It was like, so it was kind of like a burgeoning thing. Now it's like every Netflix series is kind of that narrative structure almost.
Yes. A little too much.
It definitely it hit a little harder at the time. I think just on that one aspect, as we were like, we hadn't known that there was this sweet narrative structure that like you could tell stories this way, and it was really powerful.
And I mean, you had icons of romantic cinema in that. You had Hugh Grant, as you said, Emma Thompson, and then of course the Colin Firth. I mean, that was his bread and butter. And Martin Freeman. And Jonah
he was playing like a little bit part almost in that movie. He was like playing such a small part.
But having the most like puppy dog sweet romance be the two pornographic actors who are so their job is so separated from their personal connection that like it's like they've had sex on camera, yet him getting a goodnight kiss is like the world to him. You know what I mean? Like it's just that kind of really it has been actually hit kind of hard lately for the scene, which is an interesting thing to read. That scene with Keira Knightley, and I'm trying to remember his name. He played basically he's the character,
the best friend of the husband.
Yes.
I mean that whole 1 in 8 plot is a little weak on rewatch.
It is, and it's like sort of we get that thing with it where it's like, oh, it's so romantic that it sort of breaks taboos, like because he's mean to his best friend's new wife because he's madly in love with her and he's afraid of what he will say or how he'll damage his relationship with his friend if he acknowledges that to her. And so he does it in this way where it's like one night she comes out and he does it with cue cards where he doesn't say anything, and she's like so moved, she kisses him and then goes back inside. And that's like, I think the idea is like, there are moments that are so sweet that it breaks the taboo. Like she kissed him, but then it's over. It's not a romance. But it also, it's this weird thing because you're like, a normal person should be able to handle having a crush or attraction to your friend's partner or spouse or whatever, or another person in general. It's like that whole thing. It's like monogamy is crazy, like I won't be attracted to somebody else. No, that's not monogamy. We're animals. We will be attracted to other people. It's we choose, if that's your choice. I'm not holding anything against anybody who's polyamorous or open or doesn't believe in relationships, whatever. But that's the choice. And if you are so distraught over it that you have to announce your love to this person in some sort of grand gesture, it seems,
I mean, that's obsession.
Weird. Yes, exactly. It's not love. Yeah.
Yeah. And then discounting the fact, oh, this is my best friend from forever, blah, 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 blah. And like, I don't know. It does that role not inspire, an entire generation of r/neat who's like, I pined in obscurity.
Oh God.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So still overall, I think quite a lovely movie.
But yeah.
And that dude was played by Andrew Lincoln, who is famous for Walking Dead.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, a great actor. I mean, there's everybody in here, every single person, right down to Thomas Brody Sangster as the kid, Liam Neeson's son, is just excellent. I can't really knock it.
Going back, since you recommended About Time and it stars Domhnall Gleeson, I had to bring up his Black Mirror episode, Be Right Back, if only because it's also a romance, a tragic one, but it's It's fantastic. If you just want to feel bad, uh, yeah, like I mean, pick a Black Mirror episode and throw a dart and like feel bad.
Yeah, that's
Like
really what. You know what's funny though? Black Mirror right now, it just doesn't seem that bad. The Black Mirror,
no,
I
no,
can't think of a Black Mirror episode that's as upsetting as what's happening right now.
oh my God,
And with
yeah,
with what's going on. But we will still be here, even if it moves to pirate radio waves, talking to you about crazy movies.
yeah.
So,
When we all moved to Panama and host from
oh
there,
my God. I mean, get your passports now, folks.
yeah. Well, Nate, if I did have one other movie
Yeah.
going to my so this is the if you're your own Valentine and just to throw out for my boy Nicolas Cage uh It Could Happen to You with him and Bridget Fonda,
Yes.
also based on a true story about a man that wins the lottery and had promised a waitress that he would give her half if he won, and he
Hmm.
goes through with it. And the problems that ensue with that because the guy is in an unhappy marriage.
Hmm.
And I, I haven't Googled the actual story in a long time to like check my facts, but I remember it being like, obviously it's very uplifting and lovey blah 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 blah, sugar sweet ending. But I remember it being like, oh yeah, it's pretty close to some of it. They
Hmm.
definitely paint his wife as a lot more of like a money grubbing shrew than I'm
Yeah.
sure she actually was. But in what the 80s or 90s, they're
It's
like,
a
well,
yeah.
we got to make a caricature woman foil, so this is
Yes.
how we're gonna paint her, which is what it is. But otherwise. It's a very good movie. It's fun to watch Cage in a role where like I don't think there's a single outburst. It's a subdued love story, dramedy, I guess.
And Bridget Fonda, I think, does a great job in it. And again,
She's
like
great.
J.K. Simmons, if Rosie Perez is in it, watch it. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
she's so awesome.
She's the wife, and she kills it. She's really good.
And it's actually that was an interesting movie too because I hadn't thought about that movie in years, but Andrew Bergman directed that, who's known mostly as a writer. He wrote uh, Blazing Saddles. He was a writer on that,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's written a ton. Oh, and he worked. I mean, he worked with Nicolas Cage before on Honeymoon in Vegas. That was his script. So
Oh, and
and
that's his Oscar win. So,
yes,
or
and
no,
this
no, sorry, honeymoon leaving Las Vegas is the
Leaving
Oscar
Las
win.
Vegas.
Honeymoon
Honeymoon
in
in
Vegas
Vegas is a sweeter movie.
is the one where he like parachutes in at the end. That's a good one.
Yes,
That's a good
yes.
one.
The and interestingly enough, I may be missing Palm Springs and the other film that you mentioned, Jeff, that I wasn't familiar with because obviously Camille's wife co-wrote that. But this is the only one that I know that we've mentioned that was written 100% by a woman, Jane Anderson, who has done a lot as well. She's done a lot of independent or sort of that. I don't know what you'd call really if there's a name for the prosumer TV market. It's not quite a TV movie, but it's a higher budget, like the American Girl series she wrote. She wrote a bunch for, as well as Mad Men. She wrote a little and stuff like that. So she's done a lot, but that was interesting to me
It's
because
that weird indie budget scope where it's like anything under 10 million, you're indie, and it's like that's
right.
a lot of money.
Yes. And we also just to throw it out there too, Red Buttons, who was in one of his, I think it must have been one of his last roles, and It Could Happen to You. Um, I have one more movie as well, that for to watch as romance. I watched this year at Cinema Diverse here in Palm Springs, which is a a film festival around queer cinema. Most of them are films made by queer filmmakers. Some of them are made by heterosexual filmmakers or other identifying filmmakers, but with strong queer elements. This movie is so cool. It's from Austria and it's called What a Feeling. And it's from 2024. Kate Rohrer is the director. She's also one of the writers with Melina. I'm so sorry, Melina. Nwabwanwar and Wolfgang Weiderhofer. And because this is German and part of the language is Persian, I know that I am just that's not what those names sound like at all. Maybe Cat Roar, I'm close, but everybody else I'm butchering them. But it's a really cool. It's a popcorn. It's like 90% popcorn romantic comedy, like we were talking about, Jeff, where it's fun, but it may not seem like it has a lot of depth. But they work in some really nice elements. And then it has that sort of almost sappy sweet ending. So it kind of hits all the boxes to make you feel good, but feel a little more than, say, if you were watching uh a to pick on her because I like her. Vanessa Hudgens Netflix movie, right? You know, we're not talking Princess Switch 2. We're talking something a little bit more gravitas than that. But it's
Like
about
hot frosty, maybe.
yeah, yeah, there you go. I'll go with it. But no. We've got Carolyn Peters plays this sort of societally upper woman who's constantly like nagging. Nagging is such a derogatory term now, but I guess it always was. But sort of, she's pushing her husband to always like do this and say this. And at a dinner, it just goes far. And he's like, I want a divorce. And he divorces her. Like, just, no, I really want the divorce. It's not like one of those where he comes back and he's like, I made a mistake. I want a divorce. And they get divorced. And she's like a Karen. She's really um, irritating and self aggrandizing and entitled. And we then she gets drunk at this bar that turns out to be a lesbian bar. She gets into she's already drunk, and she sees this Persian woman who played by Nicole Ansari Cox, Samira, who is sort of like the Annie DeFranco of this little lesbian bar. Like, she's sings on stage and she's really full on like she's straight out of the L word. You know what I mean? Like a power lesbian character, but a little bit more grounded in reality. But she has lots of flings, and she's very attractive to everyone, kind of, because she's powerful. And they basically, of course, it's a romance. They end up together, but there's lots of elements in there that are treated better than most. Plus, it's a lesbian romantic comedy it's just a romantic comedy. It doesn't feel like it just shows the normality of everyone. It's not, oh wow, this is so different. You're like, no, it's not different. It's actually very similar. It's the same. The only difference is the societal pressures that they have to put up with and be aware of. But this woman who's only been in a straight relationship, which I know several women that's been the case, and then they end up falling in love with a woman, and they never considered themselves a lesbian or anything else. Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, that's her case as well, which she talks about in her book, which Yours Cruelly. If anybody loves Elvira, read the book. It's fantastic. And fuck Tom Jones. So it's really nice. It's really great. The husband who's divorced, they have a daughter together. A daughter's living with her still. He comes in and out, and he's not a bad guy, right? They kind of come to an amends. And then there's, which is sort of a unique element, the kid actually is the one that's like, Mom, this is not a big deal. You're dating a woman? Cool. You know what I mean? It's that potentially the coastal Gen Z ideology. We saw in the last election that there's unfortunately a wide swath of middle America Gen Z that is not on TikTok, apparently. And we also get a little bit of sort of Marina's character's issues with not having, despite being this powerful character, you find out that she's never told her family that she's a lesbian. They're Persian and traditional, and her siblings know, but her mother doesn't, and that's the big thing. And this ends up, I wouldn't say pushing her, but kind of basically being like, look, if I want my mom to know all of me, whatever happens is going to happen. And that, of course, is not always realistic for people in the real world, but it was an extra layer that made it just a little bit more meaty than the popcorn movie. And it was funny. That's the big thing. Like, we often think romantic comedies, and I think this is the problem with a lot of schmarmy streaming comedies that come out, or it's like a Hallmark movie. They're fine. They can be entertaining in the way that like Full House was entertaining. No joke is going to make you laugh. It's just not going to. It's not what they're designed to do. They're designed to put you in sort of a calm state so you can go to sleep or scroll on your phone. And this isn't that. It's actually funny. There are actually legitimate jokes built off the characters in the situation. So check it out.
Did you ever see Bros? Was it Billy Eichner?
I did not. I've heard very mixed things. Have you seen it?
It was really funny. My girlfriend and I went and saw it in theaters, and It was good. It was really funny. It fell into what you said from what I remember. You kind of only have like a raunch comedy now. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of crude jokes, but
Hmm.
I don't. It didn't matter. It truly did not
Hmm.
matter. But yeah, I mean, it was very funny. Like there were just so many good bits, and I don't know. You describing what? Sorry, what was the name of the film?
It's called What a Feeling, and it's because the
What a
song
feeling.
What a Feeling is used in it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, but that I don't know that same vibe with what a feeling that I felt like was in Bros. Just
Hmm.
yeah, it's a rom-com where the characters are gay and that it's that's it. It's just hey, yeah, they go through the same love
Hmm.
relationships, but have to deal with this extra bit of societal bullshit.
Yeah.
And Billy Eichner he has a beautiful speech like partway through about like being like queer in America, and yeah, it was very good. Just reminded me a lot of that
And it's
from your
interesting you say that
description.
because Billy Eichner, I really like Billy Eichner's character treatment, his material that he creates, and he actually is kind of got in the queer community from the people I know, and while I'm not queer, spend most of my time hanging out with gay people and drag queens because I live in Palm Springs. Um, he's gotten a little bit of like a not very friendly um uh sort of stigma around him now. And while certainly Billy, if this ever gets back to you, uh, just I don't know if you. Sometimes I think people may not be aware of that, and it makes me wonder, like, are is this something you're putting out there that is hurting you? That's hurting fans that you aren't really aware of how you behave. Um, I wonder. You never know. You would hope that would be the case if something like that happens, but whenever he's on camera or on voice, I mean, he's still voicing the librarian in Bob's Burgers. Um, Corinne and I still quote his bit character from that short um, run he had on Parks and Rec.
Is he
When
still doing Billy on the Street as well? Is that
he did a comeback of it, and I don't know if there's more episodes coming on, but it was very recent, so possibly still going. Um, but
sorry
anyway,
not to derail the Parks and Rec
no, but
character?
yeah, the Parks and Rec thing, of course, is great. We have it's like, is there he's just like so intense on the phone because he does that screaming bit so well. And uh I'm forgetting her name as well. She has one name. She plays Retta. Is like, is there something you are on too much or not enough of? And he's just like, yeah, I have a condition. Uh it's called being caring too much, and uh you know it's called caring too much, and it's permanent. Wow, my brain is gone today. Guys, let me tell you, don't take your Adderall late. Don't take your Adderall late because it will not kick in until you're trying to sleep. And then, it doesn't matter how ADD you are, your Adderall is still a stimulant. So be aware. Incurable. Okay. It's like, yeah, I have a condition. It's called caring too much, and it's incurable. There you go. Love it. Well,
Came back around. Came back
it
around.
really did. I mean, this is, folks, I'm teaching a stand-up comedy class here again in Palm Springs. This is the first one we've run in Palm Springs. It's going fantastic. We have some really amazing people in it right now, and we're gonna have an amazing grad show. So if you're anywhere in the Southern California area and want to make the drive, or if you're local, to the Cultural Center on April 27th, we'll have to be announced a headliner and featured who are really fantastic and have a lot of street cred in the comedy community. But I feel like I spend all of my intelligence in that room, like, and I'll give what I think is effective feedback, and it seems to be that people appreciate it. And as soon as I leave that room, I am utterly brain dead. It is a shock that I am able to start my car in under 3 tries. There is nothing left. So you're dealing with the Nathan who is spent, and this isn't a joke. It's just true. There's nothing else to say about it. But I am happy to be here on the podcast again. I know we took a little break at the end of last year to get things in order for the film. So please go ahead. If you want to help us keep going, go to patreon.com/Carlton Classic Films. You can donate as little as $2, which gives you a discount in our store. so you can buy movies and zines and cool things. But it also, you can subscribe for $10 a month or $12.50 a month to get our numbered releases when they come out. It's a good deal, and you help support us, and money goes directly to the filmmakers who created those films as well.
Which is also nice.
It is. And so, you know what? If you don't have someone to share Valentine's Day with, share it with some filmmakers who poured their heart and soul into these movies.
Speaking of, I got three movies up ahead that I thought were worth mentioning just as a quick tease end. Love Me, which came out recently with Kristen Stewart and Steven Yeun. You may know it as the one in a post-apocalyptic future where a buoy and a satellite fall in love and use remnants of the internet to communicate.
So I've never heard of this film,
yeah,
and it's shocking
yeah.
to me. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it looks wild. They like pull from people's Facebook pages and like are basically sending messages to each other from, again, remnants of the internet. Called Love Me, Kristen Stewart and Steven Yeun. There's also Love Hurts with Ki Hui Kwan. I tried my best. And it looks like he's like a hitman, and I don't know, it's been delightful to see him make a comeback after Everything Everywhere All at Once. Everyone obviously knows him as Short Round from Indiana Jones,
Yes.
but now he's an adult man with a totally different career, so check it out.
So happy he's got it too. He's just a delightful person by all accounts, and he's great on film. I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once is truly, that actually is another different kind of romance. If you're sharing a romance with your child, not sexually, don't go there. I know we're weird. We're not that kind of weird. But that's another one that has a really wonderful, powerful message. It's also funny. And I just wanted to throw out there too, if you want to have a really uncomfortable, awful time on this holiday of love season, go watch Love Lies Bleeding with Kristen Stewart, also about a bodybuilder and their criminal family. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's a great movie. But it kind of takes this is a sweet romance. Oh my God, what's happening? It's got that approach, which is delightful. It really is delightful.
Just anything with Kristen Stewart or Robert Pattinson post Twilight, like they've exploded. Like great movies following a train wreck of a series.
So true, so true. I just have to say, people, by the way, will say Challengers. I did not enjoy Challengers. I didn't want to see it. I didn't think I would enjoy it, and I was right. But if you
definitely not a romance.
It is not a romance. It is also, I just didn't find it believable, but I feel like it's popping up on my feed again. Like people are like, ooh, menage a trois vibe. And I'm like, no, this is just move on.
It's not particularly sexy either.
It's not.
And
and everybody looks like they're
other things
in high school. It's weird.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Strange. I looked at the thing. I'm like, oh right, I saw this trailer, and I was like, I couldn't be less interested in this movie. Like,
well, and it's also like it's a tennis movie, which again, like I'm not wealthy enough to care less about that sport. I am far too poor. I'm lucky enough to live in a gated community that's on a golf course, but I cannot afford to play golf. I cannot afford to walk 10 feet off of my deck with a golf club and a ball. That is something that I can't afford. So tennis is like one step above that. Not going to have it. But yeah, and also I'm not saying that people are not attractive to other people, but I think Zendaya is awesome. I think she's a great actress. I think she's beautiful. And the two actors that they have who are great actors, even though I didn't like the film, alongside her, I'm like, really? This is a sport. Of all the sports, it seems like tennis actually has attractive people a lot of the time, where others don't. It's sort of like being a rock musician. It's like, oh, it's good you're good at this because you ugly. And I'm like, really, these two guys? This is what this movie's about? Who produced it? I'm like, what strange, small, secluded white nation produced this?
It does feel a little bit like Zendaya owed someone a favor, and this is her payback movie, because it's Zendaya who, like, hey, love it or leave it, but like big right now,
right?
And then to that guy. It's basic. I mean, it's basically like watching a season of Love Is Blind, and you're like, oh my god, look at all these gorgeous, funny, interesting women, and then fucking the 17 Stooges and
right,
whoever.
the gremlin that crawled out of the airplane engine, the troll that walked out of the bridge on the set, and it's delightful. Even it's really 90 Day Fiance times two is really what it is, because those are just set up to make people sad about their life. Yes. So sidetrack, but just skip those films for this. Wait till after this holiday season of love to go into Love Lies Bleeding, which I do recommend. All right. Thank you all so much for coming around and getting our romantic movie recommendations. Just to wrap it up, we have What a Feeling from 2024. We have Princess Bride, of course. We have Palm Springs, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. Jeff, what were your others?
The Big Sick and About Time.
About Time. And Greg, you had another one, I think, as well.
It Could Happen to You.
It Could Happen to You with Nicolas Cage, of course, and Bridget Fonda. So check them out. In fact, if you live in Bend, Oregon and have the one Blockbuster, go ahead and go rent these. They probably have most of them. And there you go. Have a great day. Go to patreon.com/CultonClassicFilms and support us. Even if you follow us for free, it supports us and gets you in on the news. Go to CultonClassicFilms.com where you can listen to all our past episodes. This is number 230, folks. We have 230 episodes in there, plus a couple of bonuses. So listen, go back through the archives. If you find something that you're enraged about, send it care of Tad to info@cultonclassicfilms.com. Also, if you have a recommendation or you want to hear us talk about something else that we are not haven't addressed yet, let us know.
And if you're Janice.click, straight to Jeff.
Straight to Jeff. Just send it. Well, you know what? He mentioned that I should give him your address, because he's just going to send you every project that comes out. We will be talking about Janice.click's newest film, Tent Burner, in the near future. So check that out. Thank you.
I'm so proud of Janice. Like he's got this hobby that he's doing. He's making all this stuff that's great. I just don't understand why I have to be involved.
You know what's funny? Fish Piss really did take off. In fact, if you are one of those
all the kids are into Fish Piss now.
It's so true. They're just drinking it up. But seriously, if you go on if you're one of those people who downloads movies illegally, you go to the selection of torrent sites. Fish Piss is on there. It was very quickly ripped from Troma Now, unfortunately, because it would be nice to give money to the filmmaker. That's why you buy it from us, CultonClassicFilms.com. And it kind of blew up on torrent sites, and in fact, it started trending on Instagram, and Janice started getting notifications that people were commenting on Fish Piss, and then were shocked that the filmmaker was on the site and reaching out to them. So it really did sort of explode things, and I think Shrek Crack, despite its despite the questionable ability, we can't release it. Let's put it that way. It's one step into the next level of beauty. The next Shrek movie, I think it's going to have a surge, and Walmart shelves. Not saying. I mean, they're the way the government is now, they're just going to take it and put it out, and that's just the way it's going to be. But thank you all again for joining us. Catch us next week for a brand new episode of Culting Classic Films podcast, and watch us on YouTube. YouTube.com/Culting Classic Podcast. No, Culting Classic Films. That's it. Culting Classic Films. We changed the name, 3 years ago, to Culting Classic Films once we started distributing movies, and my brain is still flipping back that Rolodex, which, it's on a Rolodex. That's how you know it's old. Please, please, please follow us on Instagram at Culting Classic Films, Facebook the same, Blue Sky, I believe it is cncfilms.sky, right? That's how it's using. Anyway, you can look us up on there by our name, and we'll pull up. So this is going to be posted on Meta. Fuck Meta. That is just the reality. We're already marked. Listen, you're listening to this podcast, you're already on a list somewhere, so just roll with it. There you go. Enjoy your day. Watch your back, and have a good one.